any of the stories or attempt the actions described in them. They are AI and purely for entertainment purposes.
In the quiet fishing town of Advocate Harbor, Nova Scotia, nestled between the forested cliffs and the cold Bay of Fundy, the Munroe family seeked a simple life away from the craziness brought on by modern society. Mark and his wife, Allison Munroe, along with their two children, 11-year-old Lily and 8-year-old James, had just moved into a modest farmhouse, an orchard inherited from Mark's grandfather. The air smelled of pine and the wind never stopped whispering through the trees. Their first few weeks were uneventful, peaceful even, but then the nights changed. It began with the lights. One night, Mark was awakened by a low-frequency hum, a subtle vibration that rattled the pictures on the wall. He thought it could be a low-flying massive aircraft. He saw a glow through the window. It appeared to be a white moonlight that illuminated the sky like daylight. It felt cold, colorless, and eerie. A pale beam proceeded down from the sky, lighting up their back pasture with intentional surgical precision. He crept to the window, his breath fogging the glass. Shapes moved within that light. Thin, elongated silhouettes, heads too large, limbs impossibly long and delicate. Mark blinked. They weren't walking, they were floating, 6, maybe 7 of them, moving towards the house. By the time he turned over to Allison, she was already sitting up, her eyes wide. From the hallway, Lily screamed. The children were levitating above their beds, paralyzed. A humming filled the house, rhythmic and abnormal. Mark sprinted forward, grabbed James by the ankle, but an invisible force pulled the boy upward toward the ceiling. His skin seemed pale blue in the glow of the beam pouring through the roof, solid wood and shingles offering no resistance. Allison screamed as Lily began to rise too, her arms limp, eyes rolled back. Then the light swallowed them. The perception of time dissolved. Mark couldn't remember the journey, only sensations. Air that did not feel like air, weight that pressed on his lungs, sounds like electric sobbing. He awoke lying flat on a smooth metallic slab in a room that felt endless. The walls were gray and seamless. The lighting had no source but came from everywhere at once. He wasn't alone. They came in pairs, grays like in the science fiction stories, and reported encounters 6 feet tall, with massive obsidian eyes that reflected Mark's face like warped mirrors. Their movements were mechanical, insectoid, not angry, not curious, just purely objective and clinical. Mark could not move, only watch. Then the experiments began. One probe slid into his ear canal, vibrating with a frequency that made his vision fracture. Another hovered above his chest, dissecting his memories. His wedding day, the birth of Lily, a day out fishing with James, pulling them out of his mind like threads from fabric. He heard the children screaming, not aloud, but in his head. The grays weren't torturing them physically, they were mapping them, turning trauma into data. Mark did not know how long they were there, hours, days. There was no hunger, no thirst, only light, pain, and a suffocating sense of being watched. Then it all stopped. The family awoke in their beds at dawn, covered in a cold sweat, their bodies aching as though they'd run for miles. At first they thought it was a dream. Then they saw the marks. Circular burns on the napes of their necks, geometric patterns faintly etched into their skin like invisible ink glowing under the moonlight. Allison discovered a sliver of something metallic embedded in her wrist. When Mark pulled it out, it shockingly flailed before going still. Lily barely spoke for a few days. James stared into corners and shaded areas, expecting them to capture him again. Allison tried to console them the best she could. They went to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Their family doctor and referred specialists, a renowned expert psychologist, paranormal investigators. None of them believed it. Tepid suggestions included sleepwalking, night terrors, mass psychosis, but nothing provided closure and reassurance. But every night the family slept in the same room, clutching each other, lights on and windows bolted. Mark had installed cameras. They recorded nothing until one night the footage simply went missing. Deleted, replaced by hours of white static, the faint outline of a figure occasionally flickering into view. Mark felt woefully overwhelmed. He could not protect his family or reason with what is happening. Although the traumatic harassment of these entities had ceased, they knew the Greys were still watching. They never left, but they never felt like they were home either. 5 years later, Lily drew a haunting picture in school. A house in the woods, above it a beam of light, 4 human figures rising into the air, faces blank at the top of the page. In shaky block letters she wrote, "We were never supposed to remember, but they did."